and he would tell crazy stories about how, oh, if you cannot, for example, fight, what is morally right for you to do would be to allow yourself be sacrificed for the god. And if you would not want to do that, that's absolutely immoral, because what's your responsibility in society? You can't fight. You cannot protect us. You're just extra mouth to feed.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, it's an episode on Jubilee. It's a popular YouTube channel, and yeah, on the edition or on that episode, it was supposed to be one Christian versus 20 atheists, and it didn't go according to plan. And some of the discussions they talked about was the nature of God. That was one of the things, and also the role of science when it comes to like morality and the foundations of Christian ethics. So these are like the three things, right? So Jordan Peterson, he was supposed to be the Christian, like I said. So his argument was that there is no morality without Christianity. That was one of the stands. And
Yeah, I'm laughing because that's just outrightly that's mental. That's a very terrible position for someone like Jordan Peterson, because Jordan Peterson is a psychologist, right?
yeah,
So when he assesses his patients, the
psychologist,
moment they are not Christian, he assumes they are immoral.
that was the first one, and that's one of the troubling one for me as well, right? So the other one is also that I claimed that atheists are rejecting a concept of God that they don't fully understand. So it's like also
Okay.
arguing on their behalf because you don't really know, right? But then they actually said science cannot provide basis of morality. So you like outside of science, that it's only Christianity that can give you a sense of morality. And that the final one, that everyone inherently worships something. So that even though you say you don't believe, you worship something, either it's money, either it's power, either it's fame or whatever. What do you think?
You know what? I think this is such an interesting conversation. I want to hold my mic because what the hell, Jordan? What are you doing? So the first one is saying there's no morality outside Christianity.
Yeah.
I find that very silly. There's the first question of his profession as a psychologist. Now, I respect Jordan Peterson a lot, but I think this actually brings to question what type of psychologist is Jordan Peterson? Because does it mean that when he has patients visiting him and they are not Christians, he just assumes that they are immoral and he judges all the actions, or at least assesses all the actions from that lens? That's a question for him to answer. The second bit is, what about the people that existed before Christianity? How did society form themselves? How did they engage with each other? The basis of morality has nothing to do with any religion, from my perspective. I think the basis of morality is basically within, depending on the time, it's a contract, right? Morality is a social contract for the time that we are in, right? It's the same way, for example, what morality is today, what is acceptable as a moral action, a moral ground to stand on today, is very different from what was defined as morals in the 1700s, right? In the
For sure.
1800s. It's different, especially, I think, even if there's no drastic change for what morals stand for men, for example, for women, it's a very different story, at least. That's a big example. So honestly, I think Jordan is taking the piss there. Honestly, it doesn't make any sense. Now, to the second point of, he doesn't, honestly, to the second point of science cannot stand in place of moral or explain morals. And outside science, the only thing that explains morality is Christianity. I think that sort of comparison is already silly. Science has nothing to do with morals as well. And science, I don't think, has ever tried to explain morals. Because
I think it does, actually, in my opinion. Like that's, for me, it's also quite shocking, because that's supposed to be part of his work, right? That ethics basics, or the basis of ethics in classes and all, is about morality, and that's science, right? Social science.
That's the thing. Like maybe what I defined as science was more physical and biological sciences.
Natural sciences, okay.
Yeah, because social science natural sciences exactly. Social science is more sociology, and this is more the study of interactions within society. It's not necessarily science. Of course, you might carry out some experiments to understand it better.
Yeah.
But I think it's more observation and, again, agreement between members of a community. But that agreement does not have to be scientific.
But would you then argue that those sort of conclusions from social science cuts across most cultures all around the world, almost coming to the same conclusion? I would argue that, yeah, they are.
On morality?
Of morality and ethics, right? They can vary slightly, but when it comes to the fundamental bit about the human nature, right? Because it's the study of human nature at the end of the day, that it still boils down to mostly the same thing, in my opinion.
If you look at Norse, like the Nordics, back in the Viking era, there were certain things that would be considered immoral in the Viking era, that if you hear it now, it's terrible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I use the Viking era because I'm watching a movie recently called Ghost, and there's this guy from back then, Thorfinn, blah blah blah, and interacting with today's world, and he would tell crazy stories about how, if you cannot, for example, fight, what is morally right for you to do would be to allow yourself be sacrificed for the god. And if you would not want to do that, that's absolutely immoral, because what's your responsibility in society? You can't fight. You cannot protect us. You're just extra mouth to feed.
That is culture, not ethics.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That defines what is defined as morals within their society. I think this brings us back to the conversation of good or bad that we had. And I think morals are generally tied to that, right? But I think if you live in a society that they accept certain things in a certain way, when you move in that direction, you will be seen as the morally upright and morally well-grounded person. So I think it's still related to culture. And that's why I'm saying it's not necessarily science, it's more tradition, culture, sociology, things that you observed, and common agreements between members of a community. And Christianity is just a community as well, right? It's an agreement between people that call themselves Christian, saying this is how we should act, this is what is defined as morals. Same with Islam, same with any other type of religion. But culture precedes all those things, right? A lot of cultures influenced Christianity. It's how Islam is supposed to seem super Arabian, simply because of the origin of Islam.